We moved to Tasmania for a fresh start, but sadly, only 12 months later, we set off on our final road trip, and here's why. At the end of 2024, we bought ourselves a caravan, and we're currently living the dream, travelling around Australia. Our first hit out was at this picture-perfect farm stay on the side of Lake Huntsman called Hilltop Farm. It was a mixed bag of weather, but thankfully we had it all to ourselves so we could figure out how to set up the van while no one was watching. This place really set the bar high to start off our caravanning journey, and I couldn't have asked for a better introduction into the van life. On our next trip, we visited Mole Creek and stayed in another hip camp all by ourselves. We used this location to explore some surrounding attractions, but not before stopping in to get me some leatherwood honey, which I'm obsessed with. You combine it with ice cream, and this is my new favourite place to stop in Tasmania. After some well-deserved ice cream, we headed off to check out King Solomon's Caves, which is part of the Mole Creek cave system. And if you weren't aware, caves are pretty cool. It's just basic geology and stuff, but essentially, tens of thousands of years ago there was a seafloor here, and there's a heap of dead salty aquatic fossils stuck up in the ground above the caves. So when it rains, they slowly drip through the underground river and cause these huge stalagmites, which drip down and cause stalactites that you can see here. Oh yeah, the stalagmites might drop on your head. This is all probably not even close to what the guide said, but it's how I remembered it, and I'm sticking to it. The following morning we took Isla, to Tasmania, Tasmazia, which is one of the largest maze facilities in the world and pretty random. After some small trips over a few months, we stepped it up and spent a couple of weeks on the road. First off, we headed northeast to Derby, where we spent a couple of nights at a hip camp just out of town, which again, we had all to ourselves. This was another goodie, and I and the dogs really enjoyed it. We got a little bit peckish, so headed into Derby and grabbed ourselves a bloody hectic pie before checking out the Mount Paris Dam, which is a very random but awesome bit of history. They built it in the 1900s with wheelbarrow loads of concrete, of course, and after a few years of operation, they realised it wasn't even remotely engineered correctly, so they had to abandon it. After blowing a small hole in it, they realised it still captured water, so they cut these big ass holes in it years later. It's like a post-apocalypse scene. Life always seems to find a way. Back on the road with a quick stop in a little blue lake, before heading to Cosy Bay, which was voted 2025's most beautiful beach in Australia, Swimcart Beach. The first day was absolutely beautiful, but unfortunately we ended up with 60 plus km/h winds and had to bunker down for a day or two. As you can see, we headed up to the gardens and Island nearly got blown across the state. It was nuts. From there we headed south of the Tasman Peninsula. We stopped at a farm stay in between, but as we've done the big tickets like Cosy Bay and Maria Island in the past, we gave it a miss this time in exchange for Port Arthur. This former township and convict settlement is one of the most significant heritage destinations in Australia's colonial history, and it's a must do if you're into that kind of thing. It's pretty impressive and there's too much to cover, so just check it out if you're down there. After that, we set off to Hobart again for a few nights. There's something about Australia's most southern capital that really does get to me. First off, we headed down the wharf to board the ferry to the Museum of New and Old Art, or most commonly known as Mona. It's not completely kid-friendly, but there's plenty to do for them and ample warning around the dirty stuff, so I'll give you a pre-warning now, there may be some dirty stuff. Their ferry ride was enough to make the day worth it for either alone. You just can't go to Hobart without visiting Richmond. So we went straight to the lolly shop, of course, bought a heap of junk food, played on the playground, soaked up the views of that stunning 200-year-old stone bridge, fed the ducks and let Isla run off her sugar high. Oh, so we thought. Of course, the other big ticket item in Hobart is the Salamanca Market. I only really go here so I can smash a dozen donuts. But seriously, as far as markets go, this one takes the cake. Regardless of the time of the year, this place is always packed and it doesn't seem to be short of stalls ever. It's definitely worth a stop in if you're there on a Saturday, I don't know, have a Google. We headed back up to Launceston and spent a few days at Old Mac's farm, before heading to Devonport and sadly ending our time here in Tasmania. When we initially moved from sunny North Queensland to Tasmania, we did it to be closer to family, and in comparison to Townsville, we certainly were. But we were never 100% sure if it'd be forever. We really just needed a sea change and a kind of reset. Spending that 12 months in what I still believe is Australia's most beautiful state has done exactly that. And we made the decision to once again pack up and leave. Now don't get me wrong, I could easily spend my life here. So we're not bailing because we hated it. It's all about family and making a balance in life. It was awesome being able to spend so much time with my father and enable Isla to forge such a deep and everlasting relationship with him. But now it's time to share the load with the other grandparents, of course. Several cousins a similar age, with loads of aunties and uncles in a close proximity, along with Hayley and my close friends, all with their own little families now as well. I'd like to say this is just about Isla. It's as much about us as it is about her, especially if another little critter ever comes along one day. You know, a wise man once said to me, all roads lead home, so back to Vic we go. Well, not just yet, as we're currently driving through the Northern Territory, but we'll return next year and start a new life again when we're ready. We wave goodbye to Tassie, but this is not the end. More like the start of another new chapter, as I got loads of footage already through Victoria, South Australia and the Northern Territory, with the whole of WA, the South Australian coast and the Great Ocean Road to go. So if you want to see what we get up to over the next 6 months, chuck us a subscribe because there's plenty of vids in the works. Thanks again for watching and I hope you enjoyed our Tasmanian series. And until next time, cheers.